Excellent.
All right. We'll go right into the agenda topic number 2 here, public appearances, non-public items, and item 2A, public emailed questions.
I did not get any.
Nothing. Okay. Then we can move on to item number 3 on the agenda, approval of the minutes, and we will need a motion to approve the September library board meeting draft minutes.
If there is a correction, do I mention it now or no? We motion to approve and then we have a discussion.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded, and we can now go into discussion. And I have a feeling Toby has something to say.
Yeah, and I'm sorry because I am thrown off by the fact that I didn't have the link, and now I cannot find the piece of paper that told me where the mistake was. But it had to do with something right after my name where it said of instead of off. So I'm just going to Control F for a minute, put in my name because it's a hard name to spell, and see if I can find it. Okay, dropping off their kids. Okay, found it. Okay, so it is on page 7. First new paragraph says, Marcille also noted that if the library were to open, we might see a rise in parents dropping. It should say off their kids, not of their kids. Jenny, do you see it?
Yeah, sorry, I was just pulling it up on my computer.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I will make the correction. Thank you.
Okay.
Pointing that out.
Good. Any other discussion or any other discussion? So now then we need to vote on, do I need a new motion then to approve the minutes as amended, or we can just go to approve the minutes?
I think just approve as noted.
Okay. So we'll go into vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And the motion passes. Thank you. And we'll move right along to agenda item number 4, treasurer's report.
Yes, so you've got the overview and the register. I just wanted to note a couple of things. In account number 290, service contracts, you'll see that we are only in August here and we are already 2% overspent. I just wanted to note that's due to a couple of things. The first one being that we purchased the software that we are using for reading programs. So the summer reading program and the fall reading program is a software called Beanstack, and that was not an expected expense, except we are getting reimbursed by the state because they bought a statewide membership. So we will see that money, and we've actually seen that money come back in, but it won't take it out of that account because we already made the expenditure, but it will be reflected then in, I think, miscellaneous revenue. So we'll see that balance out. This is also where we're seeing charges for the extra disinfecting cleaning service that we've hired. October is the last month for that. Those expenses will be reimbursed through the CARES Act. But again, that's going to be expended here, and then we will, I think someday soon, be seeing a new revenue account that will account for the CARES Act funding. So it will balance out, but not exactly in the account that it was spent out of. But it should all even itself out. The other expense I wanted to point out, both on the register and on the overview, is an account 355. We had a $15,000 total this month, and that is largely in part due to computer replacements. So that's a once a year expense, and that came out in August. Actually, I should go back also. There are two expenditures in account 240. So that's repair and maintenance by others. that were not expected. So I think 5 years, we have to do a dry test on the sprinkler system. And for some reason, they can never tell us, and we can never remember the year ahead that it's happening. So it's always kind of a surprise to us. It's under $1,000. I think we can handle it. I'm not worried about it. Kevin and I have both promised that we're going to try to remember in 5 years that it needs to be done. In 4 years that it needs to be done in 5 years. And then the Arch Electrics, that was the repair when the solar panels were not functioning properly. So that actually came in much, much lower than I expected. So I was actually happy to see that that was not thousands of dollars, but that was unexpected as well. Any questions about any of the totals or any of the individual charges this month?
None for me.
All right, then we should have a motion to approve.
And Wendy, is that all for overview and register? So we'll
Yes.
motion to approve the overview and register. So
Yes,
I
please.
then would ask for a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Then let's move to the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Okay, motion passes. And we'll go on to item number 5, unfinished business. I'm seeing none. I'm guessing we don't have any, but I'll open it up.
Actually, I did read in Robert's Rules of Order
Here we
that
go.
what, here we go. What we should do with that thing that we want to postpone until January
Yeah,
is we should make a motion to whatever we decide, and then someone else should second it, and then someone else should table that motion until January. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Toby,
And we're allowed to motion and second on something that's not on the agenda?
Well, that's a good question. That I did not look at.
I suspect no.
I don't think so. So I think what we need to do is put it in new business next month and then do that.
Okay,
Okay. I will make a note of that. And that is, what do we
This
want
is-
to call that? That is doing a 360, investigating options for a 360 review?
And maybe I would even broaden it to say like employee engagement or 360 or something along those lines, Wendy, just so I don't want it to be too narrow.
Yep. Yep, okay.
If that, Toby, does that square with what you were thinking?
that does.
Good,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, now we have something to look forward to for November. This is great. Thanks for looking into that, Toby.
That's
Thank you.
okay.
That's cool. Okay, so no unfinished business for this month. We can move on to item number 6 in the agenda, new business, and item 6A, proposed library budget. Wendy's favorite time of year.
Always. I'm gonna slow down and let you do a motion in a second, and then we'll discuss.
Okay, so we
Never
need
remember.
a motion to approve the proposed budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed budget for 2021.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
All right, yes. So what you have in the packet was up to date when we published the packet. I got some information from Misty right after that. And since this will come back to us as council approved next month. I didn't think that it was worth reposting it, and Misty agreed. But here's the situation. So we had a change from the last time you've seen this, in that the IT operating allocation was lowered by $3,145. You'll see that sort of towards the bottom. And you'll see that in revisions through adoption. So that was some kind of project that I think was put off in IT that lowered our allocation that they get from us. So that left us with that much of a surplus. But then Misty let me know last week that our property tax levy has been decreased by $1,900 due to expenditure restraint. Is how our increase. So our increase of 3.5% for the year was based on the expenditure restraint program. And the consumer price index came in at 1.4 instead of 1.5, I believe. And so they had to make some adjustments to the levy. So she and I discussed this and decided that we would just absorb that in the surplus that we were already showing. So it's not really going to change very much for us. But I wanted you to know that. So right now we're looking at an overall surplus of $1,114. And you know, I would rather that be zero because I like everything to balance out. But at some point, Misty really wants me to stop monkeying with the numbers just to make it zero out. So
The surplus is, are you speaking of 2020? Or are you talking about 2021?
no, 2021.
So you're already talking about a surplus for 2021.
Yes.
If there's a surplus in 2020,
Mhm.
where does that money go? Does it go back to the city general fund, or do you?
Does not. So if you look at the finance report that we look at every month, the big one.
Yep.
You'll see in the yellow box or towards the bottom, we've got our fund balances there. So
Okay.
because that money is allocated to the library, it does not go back to the general fund. It stays in our own allocated fund balances. So what we've got there is assigned fund balance, restricted and assigned fund balances. So the restricted part is the like 15 to 20%, 10 to 15, it changes, that the city would like us to just keep on hand for emergencies. And then the assigned fund balance is money that we can expend on whatever the library board sees fit. Mostly we've been saving that for a new sorter, which is coming up in a couple of years. So capital projects is generally what we would spend that on.
Sure.
I think we're going to have a fairly large surplus this year because we've been so limited in our activities. I actually just today started what I call the monkey budget. So I take where we are in 2020 and I estimate all of our expenses for the rest of the year. And it's still very far from being accurate, but we're looking at somewhere over $200,000 surplus at the end of the year.
Wow.
And if that's the case, it being new on council and on finance committee, I'm trying to understand, can the money that's allocated to the library, can a game be played? And I don't mean to do it, I'm just curious. Can the amount of money that would come to the library, could they reduce that amount just because of what you have as surplus?
I mean, technically they could.
Mhm.
I don't think that would go over well.
I wouldn't think
And it's
so.
something that we have avoided very, very strongly.
Good. Good. I just want to know all the ins and outs.
I think that happens in a lot of cities, and I'll say that in a lot of municipalities, the library is not a separate fund, it's part of the general fund. And then they tend to get all of their surplus taken at the end of the year, and those libraries work very hard to spend right down to the dollar. And I'll say I'm very thankful we don't have to do that because we are able to save for upcoming expenses. So I'm not going to the city saying we need new meeting room tables. You know, we can handle that ourselves.
Right.
So it works out, I think, for both sides this way because we don't ask for things
Good.
Unexpectedly or above and beyond what our operating is.
And can it also be used for personnel?
I think Misty would hate that.
Yep.
I won't say that I think it's not possible, but I think she would disapprove of that.
Okay. I'm just curious as far as
Because
going
because
forward.
personnel is an ongoing cost.
Okay.
And I think fund balance use is generally a one-time thing.
No, I'm just thinking about as far as protecting the personnel that we have now. That's all going forward.
Oh, sure. I think if it came down to some kind of an emergency situation, that might be different.
Yeah.
But I think if we went to Misty and said, I want to hire a new librarian and I want to pay for it out of fund balance, she would say absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, and that would go counter to, you know, Wendy, maybe it would help to give Randy a little bit of background on some of the original themes from the original strategic plan, which was around kind of, the financial strength of the library and not doing those sorts of things where you're sort of funding from a finite pool that
Yes.
eventually would run out, and then you'd get into a situation where you were underfunded.
Yes,
so I
similarly,
think-
we've had suggestions if we could, when we were trying to add the outreach librarian position, we had a lot of suggestions about could we get donations to cover the salary? And the feeling really, I think on both the city side and our side is that that's not sustainable, and that that's an irresponsible way to fund something. So I think it kind of goes along with that.
Yeah.
It's good way to
Yeah.
look at it, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just think, if this pandemic continues in 2021 and,
Right,
where other municipality or libraries are laying off or furloughing,
right.
just trying to understand so that we don't have to do that, that's all.
Yeah, and I think having that fund balance in place, if something emergency, the need would come up, I think having it there makes me feel much better than if we had nothing in savings.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So I think that's all that I have to update you on the budget. I can also tell you that there were no amendments put forth by the alders to change our budget. So I think we, at this point, are just waiting for the public discussion, which happens at the committee of the whole meeting, I believe, coming up. And then by the time we meet in November, we should have an approved budget that we can, for the last time, put our stamp of approval on.
That's great.
Wait, so now we do need to approve this.
Questions? Okay, so we need to vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no? And the motion passes. Thank you for that, Wendy. Item 7, President Report. The only thing I have to report is that I got to experience firsthand this week the curbside pickup at the Fitchburg Library on behalf of my daughter, Catherine. And yeah, it was awesome. Call up,
Good.
give
I'm so glad to hear
the
it.
number, pick a time, and we stopped by right at that time. Cat jumped out, grabbed the books, and off we went. So it was great.
Excellent.
And I even screwed up because I called first, and the first question was, "Can I have your library card number?" And I was like, "No, I've got to go get it." So so I said, "I'll call you back." So yeah, it was great. It worked out really well though. So I just wanted to share. I have no other business to discuss, but just wanted to share that positive experience. So thanks for
I'm
what
so
you're doing
glad.
there. And we can move then right along to item number 8, the library director report.
All right, I gotta have a couple of things. First of all, I thought we should probably talk about closure, library closure. As you all know, our most recent, I'm now calling it a target date. Our most recent target date to reopen was gonna be November the 2nd, because that's when we thought that the schools were gonna be opening. Obviously, that it's been announced that the schools are not opening. At least MMSD I've heard for sure. I think Verona and Oregon have yet to make final statements. But from parents I know in those areas, I think it's probably going the exact same way.
I would think so.
We have also been looking at hospitalization rates. We've been looking at the infection rates, which are terrible. I've been seeing Wisconsin on the national news every single night. I feel like everybody from the county to the state to the nation is telling people that the next 3 months are going to be awful and we should stay home. So at this point, what I would like to put forward is that our next target date for opening is January 25th. So that gets us through the holidays. In my mind, I feel like if people can't stay home for Labor Day, they're certainly not staying home for Christmas. I think that gives us enough time to see what the fallout will be from the Christmas holidays. And that is the end of the 25th will be the beginning of the Madison next semester or quarter, whatever they're doing now. So I think that's our next target date. We will keep doing what we're doing right now. It's going very well. I think the volume is pretty good. You'll see in the statistics that, I mean, we're certainly not circulating what we would in a normal open environment, but the numbers are continuing to go up. So I'm not unhappy with how things are going considering the situation. I think programming is still going very well. We'll probably ratchet back that in December, as we always do, because there's less interest. But I think that the staff are doing pretty well with that as well. So that is my idea. Any comments, concerns, questions?
You don't have any idea of how other libraries
Oh, Ben, I can't hear you. You're cutting out.
seeing circulation affected, are you? Or do you? Oh.
Ben, I
I'll
only
type it in
heard
the
about
chat.
2 words of that. Do you want to type it in the chat?
That is what he said.
So the question is, do you have an idea how other libraries are faring under quarantine, circulation wise? I think everybody has taken a big hit. I will say that I have heard of libraries that are doing things that I don't approve of to improve their numbers. There are libraries out there that are just checking out everybody's holds to them, whether they ask to come pick them up or not, which I think is really padding your numbers in an unfair way. So I know our numbers are low. I think everybody else's are as well. I would rather live with that number than try to monkey with it, I guess. But yeah, I think everybody's having a hard time. I will also mention, we had a call yesterday with all of the different libraries, and I'm not gonna name names, but there's a library very close to us that have been letting people in to browse, and they are about to back off of that because the local conditions are just so bad. So I'm gonna say again, I think it's a lot harder to open things up and close them down again, which is why I think we just keep on doing what we're doing. People seem very happy with being able to pick up their items. I mean, there's obviously people that would like to be in the building, but.
Question.
Yes.
When you mention numbers and other libraries manipulating, what's the advantage? I mean, we all know the reality. I mean.
So I think the worry is because we do cross municipal and cross township payments to each other. I think that people are worried if they don't get their numbers up that their income from Dane County is going to drop. I'll say that I think we're in a pretty fortunate place because we're not new anymore, but at 10 years old, our income from Dane County is not nearly what some of the other libraries get. So worst comes to worst, Dane County, either those numbers change or Dane County's budgeting situation changes. It's $80,000 of our revenue. We could live without it if we had to. So I feel like I don't want to let that get in the way of presenting what's really happening. Because you're right, we're all in the situation together. Everybody knows, we'll forever know what happened in 2020, right? Like you're going to look back at the numbers and you're not going to ever expect to see a normal curve. Yeah, but I think that's why. Okay, so if everybody's good with that, I'm going to send out an email. I think the staff are all very curious about what our next step is going to be. So I'm going to send out an email tomorrow and I'll include all of you on it as well, that's going to be our next step. And then we will all keep our fingers crossed and hope that in January things are looking much, much better than they are right now. And that Wisconsin is not on the national news every single night. Okay, so moving on. The other thing that has been kind of a big thing this week amongst all of the libraries involves the quarantine period for our returned materials and our delivery. The state of Oregon, which I can't say now that I live next to Oregon, the state of Oregon got their state librarian together with a public health official and a physician, and they wrote a memo saying that they thought that the REALM project that's been testing the virus on various library materials and seeing how long it lives on those materials has been overzealous and applying too much of the virus, and that we don't know how much virus a person actually applies to something when they sneeze on it, which is totally true. And the REALM project has been very upfront about what the known unknowns are, which is they don't know how much a person deposits when they sneeze or cough on something, and they don't know how much of the virus it takes to make someone sick. So they have taken this 100,000 bioparticles, that's what they're applying, and then they're saying like how fast that's wearing off of items. And that's why we went from the 3-day to the 4-day quarantine. So this group in Oregon came out with a memo basically saying that they felt like that was overzealous and that people aren't really getting sick from touching things, and that they really feel like 24 hours is plenty. Someone in Wisconsin got a hold of that memo and sent it to the Department of Public Instruction, who sent it to the Department of Health Services, and got Wisconsin to say, yeah, we think 24 hours is probably fine too. So, big story in the news today, Madison Public is going to a 24-hour quarantine. I think a lot of the other libraries are going to do the same thing. It makes me very nervous. It makes me feel like we're ignoring the science in favor of what would be more convenient. I have a really hard time saying to the staff, like, well, we thought we were worried enough to quarantine for 4 days, but now we think 24 hours is probably okay, so let's just give it a try. I don't feel good about that at all. The lucky part of this is that each library gets to decide on their own. The big decision we had to make as a system was that delivery services is now just going to quarantine for 24 hours. That doesn't really affect us because we will take our delivery and quarantine it for 4 days like we've been doing. I am very open to keeping an eye on what's happening and the research and going down to 3 days and maybe 2 days when we feel like that's appropriate. A big part of the memo, this is kind of sticking with me. A big part of the memo was be cognizant of your local conditions when you're making decisions. Like they're not prescribing 24 hours. They're saying they think that's okay, but that you should be cognizant of what's happening in your own area. And I feel like things are terrible here right now. So why anybody would make a decision to go down right now, I don't understand. So I think we're having another meeting about this tomorrow with the management team and the curbside team. I think we'll probably stick with 4 days. The workflow for us is not unmanageable. We've been doing this for weeks now. So the 4 days is just kind of how we're used to doing it. I don't think there's a real downside. It takes a few more days to get holds, but I think that our patrons are going to see that time decrease just because everybody else is going down to 1 day. I mean, delivery going down to 1 day alone, I think will save a couple of days on our holds getting here. So I think it's going to be an improvement either way, but it also protects our staff.
I just
Randy,
want
yeah.
to, I want to
ahead,
make,
Toby.
oh, sorry, Randy, go ahead.
Oh, no, Toby, you were first. Go ahead.
I was going to say that as of about 4:30 today, the CDC has changed what it believes exposure is. I don't know if anybody else saw this. But you know how the CDC was saying you need 15 minutes of exposure to catch it? Well, now they're saying that you need 15 minutes over 24 hours. So that if you get 5 minutes exposure at 8 in the morning and another 10 later on during the day, you're going to get that 15 over a 24-hour period, and that's going to be a problem now, and people are catching it that way.
Okay.
So I think I agree with you that holding off to 4 days to protect our staff and our patrons, it's not, as long as your workflow is okay, which you're saying it is, people are only waiting 4 days to get a book that maybe has just come back. That doesn't seem like a huge inconvenience for the safety.
Okay, I agree.
You know, I would be in agreement. The push from Oregon, state of Oregon, is there push based on any type of data, science, or is it just they don't believe?
No, the DHS, when they came out with their opinion, said it's not that the science has changed, it's that the interpretation has changed. So I think it's just that someone pointed out that maybe 100,000 micro or bioparticles is 10 times more than people actually emit in a sneeze, but nobody knows that. So, yeah. And I think we are like headed in the direction of understanding that this is really airborne and not from things. Like, I think you don't really hear about people that, I mean, they may have caught it at the grocery store, but it's probably from the people at the grocery store, not the groceries. But also, I don't think we know that for sure. So I'm also not averse to, like, if that's what everybody else wants to do, let's see what happens. But let's not do it here yet.
Wendy, I would also be in support of waiting the full 4 days and continuing that practice, especially since the prevalence of COVID in our area is so strong right now. I mean, we're over 20%. So I definitely support your decision.
Okay. Thank you. That's good to hear from everybody.
Did everybody read Ben's chat comment? That
Limit to
radio,
Wisconsin on the national news, Radio France had a reporter checking out the polls. Oh.
so Radio France.
So we're gonna be famous for something other than our COVID numbers. That's kind of nice. Early voting at City Hall next door, I can see out the window. I've been watching it for 2 days and it's been very busy. Happy to see that. All right. I sent an email last week about a unfortunate phone call that we received. Just wanted to give you an update. We did file a police report. So we have that number just in case we need it. We have not had any repeats of that incident.
Wendy, can we assume that that person loses privileges at the library?
We have no way of knowing who that is.
So we don't know from like a reverse directory or,
Yeah.
okay.
I will tell you that the number was registered outside of Dane County.
Okay.
Is there
I
a
don't- I
follow-up?
don't-
Would law enforcement follow up with it? I mean,
They
beyond.
said they would if we asked them to. So when I talked to the police chief, he said we had kind of three options, that we could just ignore it. Or we could file a report. If it happened again, we could take action, or we could take action immediately and try to track the guy down. And we decided that we would kind of take the middle of the road approach. So we've got the number recorded with the police and in our own records. So if it would happen again, we could follow up. I mean, I don't even know if that person was anywhere near our library when they called. For all I know, they're just looking at businesses that are closed and harassing them.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. And then I wanted to just let everybody know that we are set to update the bylaws for the board in November. So I think by statute, I have to send them to you 30 days in advance. So I'll be sending those to you tomorrow so that you can review them and we'll discuss them next month. And then if we have big changes to them, then we will probably approve them in December. Okay. All right, that is all for the library director report.
All right, moving on then to item 9, committee reports.
All right, I don't have anything for strategic planning. Facilities, I'll say we're trying to get everything shipshape on the front portico, front porch part of the library for wintertime curbside pickup. So Kevin replaced some light bulbs out there today, and we are working on replacing the sensor that triggers the heated sidewalk, so that if and when it snows, that should, right now we've been having to turn that on manually. So he and Dan took that out of the sidewalk, which was quite an endeavor, and they are working on replacement parts to get that up and running again.
Where does Wi-Fi sit? I mean, maybe it was cared for and I just don't remember. There was some discussion of that.
So we got approved for the grant to do the Wi-Fi access point that's going to be outside. And we have been waiting for the parts to arrive. Apparently it's very hard to get an exterior access point right now because so many people want them. So it did ship last Thursday, should be at South Central, I would say this week, and then we should get it. The wiring is all ready. So it's just kind of sticking out of the wall, and Kevin will install it as soon as we get our hands on it. So hopefully next month I'll have good news.
Okay, and one other question on facilities. There was issues that you reported on maybe two meetings ago regarding solar, the monitoring.
Yes.
And is that been,
Mhm.
have we been monitoring, or has that been corrected and we know for sure that?
The problem was corrected, and we can see that on the monitor in the vestibule, that it's, we can see what the output is.
Okay.
Yep, so I'm confident that it's working. Okay, that's all for facilities. Personnel have a little bit of unfortunate news. One of the new hires that came on in August did not work out. We went through quite a bit of coaching and improvement plans. But we just had a person who was not willing or not able, I don't really know, to follow the curbside procedures that we had in place. So that ended this week. That person made a very dramatic exit and made sure that as many staff saw that exit as possible, which made a lot of people uncomfortable. But that situation should be over now, and we will probably have a vacancy posted, I would say, in the next month or two. And that's all from me.
Wendy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do we have to make any other accommodations for the curbside pickups, whether to protect the books? Because I see that we're getting about over 2,300 pickups in September. And I just figured it out on my calculator. That's about 74 a day. And I was just wondering if at what point do you have to do like sheeting or anything else to protect the books from inclement weather?
So we've got 3 tables sitting out front right now. 2 of them are, well, 1.5, 1 2/3 are pretty well protected because they're under the portico. We're going to rearrange those. So typically, you know, we've got the ramp that comes down to the front door and we've got that set of stairs. The stairs, unfortunately, has a very pretty but very treacherous natural rock at the top that when it gets snow and ice on it is really kind of dangerous. So we typically, at the first snow of the year, block those off. So I think as soon as we block those off, we're going to move the table arrangement so that it's further under the portico. And we're going to make a little U shape so that it's kind of easier for the staff to get stuff out there. And then we did, I'm sorry to say this, and I'm sorry I had to do it, but we did purchase plastic bags. We've been doing a lot of paper bags and a lot of recycled bags, which has been great. But I think for snow and rain, we're just going to have plastic. So we've got plastic bags to put items in, and we can tie those. We've got them in 2 different sizes, so picture books versus like novels. And then I think we just have to, if we've got a lot of snow and the wind is coming in the right direction, then we may have to hold off for a day.
Okay.
So we're ready to do that. It's pretty easy to do that because we're doing same day pickup. Essentially, we'll just change our voicemail to say that we're unable to provide it today and then hopefully be back at it the next day.
Okay, thank you.
So nobody's going to be missing a pickup because they haven't scheduled the pickup. So I think that worked out pretty well. Yes, but thank you for asking because we've been talking about that a lot. we just now, I think late last week, we're like, are there lights out there? I'm not even sure how bright it is, but I think we're going to be okay. Any other questions? All right.
Okay, so we are on then to item 10, announcements, and just one announcement. Our next board meeting will be Wednesday, November 18th, right back here on Zoom. And then we'll move on to item 11, adjournment, and we'll need a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And motion passes. Thank you all very much. Have a great,
Excellent.
great evening.
Yes, good to see you.